So something has just happened in Parliament. Most people probably wouldn't have even noticed. MPs have held a full debate on mandatory digital ID in the United Kingdom, and this was because there was nearly 3 million people that petitioned against it. It was initially just completely ignored by the government, but then all of a sudden there is a debate. And it wasn't really public knowledge either, but it was thrown on YouTube, and you weren't even allowed to comment on YouTube either, which I found quite interesting. They were obviously trying to avoid the negative feedback that was likely to appear. But for the first time, the people that are behind this agenda spoke openly on record about what's coming. So I want to try and break this down a little bit. It's worth watching. There's 2 hours of it. It's worth watching, but I'm just going to break it down, just snippet really of what this said and what's already been built, and why really the next 12 months matter more than most people would realise. For years, the government has been slowly normalising digital ID through small steps. You know, that could be the biometric passports, driving licenses with embedded chips, app-based services, the NHS app, COVID passes, one login, and now the gov.uk wallet. So, as per usual, each step is sold as some kind of convenience. If you watch the full 2 hours, the first half is pro the debate, pro the digital ID, and then you've got the second half where you've got sort of human rights and the kind of cons to digital ID and the problems that this could cause us all. You watch the first half of the debate. Generally, it's kind of sold as convenience. Doesn't sell it very well to me, but that's kind of where their USP is. Don't need to root through your paperwork to find documents and this kind of deal. Everything will just be there on your app. For me, that's it's worth the risk, I think, of trying to find a piece of paper. But maybe that's just me. But I don't think it's really selling it very well. So, like I say, each step was sold as convenience or security, or for health purposes, efficiency, you know. But individually, none look dangerous. But together, they build a complete identity infrastructure, and one that most people probably never saw forming. And because these separate parts are now forming into a centralised system, well, what they want is a centralised system. This is essentially what we call mission creep, isn't it? Normalising things and then pulling the items together, the elements together. And in Parliament, that mission creep finally became visible to the public eye. So a government-aligned tech witness in the debate told MPs that by 2027, every state-issued document, that being driving licenses, veteran cards, right to work checks, right to rent checks, age verification, much more, must be placed inside the government wallet by 2027. So essentially, this means the one login will be your master identity, and the gov.uk wallet will be your digital twin. And every document that you rely on becomes a token inside the whole infrastructure. So it's no longer speculation or conspiracy. they've actually explained it all in the debate. So MPs were told openly that nearly half of the UK already uses digital ID without realising it. Banks use it, employers are using it, landlords are using it, supermarkets are beginning to use it. So if people think digital ID is an idea that might happen just in the future, what happened in the debate in Parliament showed that it's actually already here. And once your identity and your documents and your entitlements are inside this one centralised wallet, this system easily will connect to things like biometrics, facial recognition, automatic number plate recognition road systems, AI traffic control. Like, if you've never looked into it, it's worth looking into. There's a system called Vivacity Labs. It's already, these camera systems, these AI camera systems are already in place in my local area, which is concerning. And if you check the website for Vivacity Labs, you'll be amazed at the technology of what it's capable of doing in terms of surveillance. Then there's cashless shopping. You know, robot stores like Amazon and I believe Co-op are going to be doing something. There's also a convenience store called In5, which is in Salford, which is just app-based. And it has a robot that basically just drops your items into a safe, which you then open with your QR code. You know, smart city networks are already in place. They've been by stealth, are being implemented. These infrastructures are being implemented. You know, they were talking about 15-minute cities, but the councils have dropped that name, but it hasn't stopped them dropping what they're doing. You know, you need to maybe look into your local areas, do some homework, and see that these infrastructures are happening, and this will tie in with your digital ID. That's their plan anyway. Also, social services, medical records, benefits and pensions, any payments, and eventually central bank digital currencies. And this is not hypothetical either. The Bank of England have been talking about this for quite some time. It may not be here right now, but it's quite clear that this is where it's going. All of this infrastructure already exists. It's not a conspiracy. It exists. Like I say, AI cameras that are controlling junctions, and this is in my local area. So it's not just in major metropolitan areas. This is happening in smaller places. You've got smart mobility sensors. You've got, like I say, robot convenience stores, which are just app-only access. You've got cashless supermarkets running live facial recognition, automatic number plate recognition cameras everywhere. And then algorithmic risk profiling, where 200,000 innocent people were wrongly flagged in welfare checks. So all these systems, all this infrastructure is already there. And the final missing piece is simply to bring it into a centralised system. And digital ID, the gov.uk wallet, will provide that central point. You know, and I've heard people often say, and I've had it in conversation myself, why worry? You know, if you've done nothing wrong, what's the issue? You know, if you're not doing anything wrong, what's the problem? And here's my answer to it. A centralised system doesn't protect the innocent. It controls them. Because once you have the ability to drive, rent, travel, shop, access healthcare, receive benefits, etc., and it's all tied to a single identity token, you're no longer dealing with rights. You're dealing with permissions. And permissions can be restricted. They can be conditioned. They can be rationed. They can be suspended or even revoked. And that's not by law. That won't be by law, but it'll be by policies or an update or an algorithm. It'll be AI that will be saying, computer says no. You might get the opportunity to speak with an empathic person on the end of the phone line. Look how things have gone over the past few years. You can hardly even speak to a human being anymore. This should concern people, really. And also history teaches us that once a government introduces a new power, even if it's temporarily, it almost never gives it back. Look at things like emergency surveillance laws, pandemic restrictions, track and trace, COVID passes. We went from 2 weeks to flatten the curve to totalitarian control in no time at all, where people were coerced then to try and get their lives back. There's censorship policies, terrorism legislation used for unrelated purposes. These are patterns, and they don't lie either. You just need to look into it. Over the past 100 years or so, British governments have introduced controls that were either later reused, expanded, or quietly repackaged. For example, ID cards in World War II. Intelligence gathering powers later that would be used on civilians. Anti-terror laws later used on journalists. COVID restrictions declared temporary, becoming infrastructure. Track and trace, normalising event-level monitoring. Health passes. They became the first digital movement permissions. You only have to cast your mind back just a couple of years ago. Just a few years ago. And now companies' house verification becoming the first mandatory onboarding. Migrant digital IDs becoming the model for everyone else. And that pattern is so simple to see. You introduce it, you normalise it, you withdraw it, and then you reintroduce it in a new form, which then is expanded. Digital ID is following the same script. So, are we really going to trust the government? Politicians? Since when have we trusted politicians? So why are we trusting them with all our private data? And data that in a centralised system can be hacked. In India, the Aadhaar biometric ID system has caused people to be denied food because fingerprints didn't match. Pensioners were unable to collect payments because hackers were cloning the biometrics and emptying bank accounts. And as often the case, the poor are being effectively punished for system errors. When identity is digital, any error could become life or death. It's that serious. Once your ID, wallet, travel payments, health and social scores sit inside a single app, the system can easily limit travel, restrict purchases, enforce carbon quotas. We're already seeing these carbon things appearing on our bank accounts, on our apps that we're using. They were to block services, deny access, score our behaviour, reward compliance and punish dissent. In a future emergency, this becomes then the control dial for the entire population. And I don't want to be fear-mongering here. This is not fear-mongering. This is what the architects of the system are openly discussing. How do we stop it? Well, we start by educating ourselves and the public. Speaking to your neighbours, your friends, your family members. Show them videos such as this and many, 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 many others that are talking about the pitfalls of such a centralised system. And we simply say no to it. You know, we do not consent. They want our consent and they need our consent to centralise this. They're building everything, but we must say no to this centralised digital ID enrolment. We must continue using paper-based routes. Right now, for companies, my understanding is they're not even giving much of an opportunity but to go through the digital ID route to keep your company, limited company going. That's outrageous that we have not been given another route, a paper-based route to file your necessary paperwork. Are we in a dictatorship now? You know, what is this? Other things we can do are filing DSARs, which you could file a DSAR to expose data mining. For example, you go into a local supermarket that's filming you. You can file a DSAR to find out where your personal data is going, what it's being used for. And I think that's a powerful way of slowing this system down as well, making sure people are understanding of what their personal data is being used for. We can be supporting local businesses that are refusing digital ID on digital-only systems. You know, support those cash-only places. It's very powerful. Support the local companies, the local businesses that are being squashed by the huge supermarkets. Reject app-only services just because it's for convenience. We shouldn't be living our ways through a phone. We need to get out and be with people more. We need to pressure MPs. They're supposed to work for us, not the other way around. And look to build your own local community of like-minded people, you know. So you're not alone. If you're feeling alone, reach out. We've got a group in our area. You know, I'm sure there's many, many groups in areas up and down the country. So network. Be with like-minded people. Don't be alone. And we don't need to spread panic or fear. But awareness and action is what brings the power back to the people. And we, the people, should be deciding such important matters as digital ID. Because if they get this fully in place, it will be almost impossible to remove. So now is the only time to stop it. So in conclusion, digital ID is not coming. It's here. It's not a secret anymore because Parliament have confirmed it. Now the question becomes, do we accept a future where our lives are permission-based, or do we draw the line right here and right now? This is the moment we, the people, push back. We do it peacefully, lawfully, and united.